Chapter 1. The Skygazers of Mali. High on the jagged cliffs of the Bandiagara Escarpment in central Mali, where the Sahel fades into the Sahara, live a people whose gaze has long been fixed not merely on the earth beneath their feet, but on the heavens far above. They are the Dogon, an ethnic group of roughly 500,000 souls who have inhabited this dramatic landscape of red rock plateaus, sheer sandstone cliffs, and hidden valleys for at least 7 centuries, and perhaps much longer. Their villages, clusters of adobe granaries, conical roofed houses, and sacred Taguna meeting places, cling to the escarpment like swallows' nests, overlooking an endless sandy plain broken only by occasional baobab trees and seasonal streams. To the outsider, the setting feels timeless, almost otherworldly, and that sensation is not accidental. For the Dogon, the sky is not a distant dome, it is a living text, a map of creation itself. The Dogon are not a simple tribe frozen in some romantic past, as early European travelers sometimes portrayed them. They are farmers of millet, onions, and sorghum, keepers of cattle, goats, and chickens, blacksmiths, weavers, and leatherworkers who organize themselves into complex lineages and age-grade societies. Their language, part of the Niger-Congo family, exists in several mutually intelligible dialects. They practice a rich cosmology that weaves together ancestor veneration, animistic beliefs, and an elaborate system of masked dances and ceremonies performed during funerals, droughts, or the sowing season. At the center of their spiritual life stands the figure of Amma, the creator god, and the Nommo, aquatic beings of divine origin who descended from the sky to civilize humanity. Knowledge is transmitted orally by priests, elders, and the Hogan, the spiritual leader of each village, who lives in ritual seclusion and drinks only from a sacred well. Yet for all the depth and beauty of their traditions, one aspect of Dogon culture has startled astronomers, anthropologists, and historians alike. An apparently inexplicable body of astronomical knowledge centering on the star Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, and its invisible companion, Sirius B. The Dogon call Sirius Sigue Tolo, the star of the Sigue, and they have celebrated a ceremonial cycle named after it every 60 years, a period that closely matches the orbital period of the Sirius system's 2 stars. They describe Sirius A as accompanied by an extremely dense, invisible star called Po Tolo, the word Po meaning a tiny seed of the fonio cereal, the smallest grain known to them. Po Tolo, they say, is made of a heavy substance called Sagolu, something heavier than all the iron on Earth, which takes 50 years to circle its brighter companion, tracing an elliptical path. They even mention a 3rd star in the system, Meya Tolo, a faint companion visible only to women, a claim that has intrigued researchers since modern astronomy has tentatively identified a possible Sirius C candidate. What makes this knowledge so unsettling to Western science is that Sirius B is a white dwarf, an ultra-dense stellar remnant roughly the mass of the Sun compressed into the size of Earth, invisible to the naked eye and only discovered telescopically in 1862 by American astronomer Alvan Clark. Its 50-year elliptical orbit was precisely charted in 1928, and its extraordinary density, millions of times denser than water, was not fully understood until the development of quantum mechanics in the 20th century. How, then, could an African people without writing or telescopes possess such details centuries before European astronomers? This is the Dogon anomaly, the single most debated piece of ethnographic data in the study of indigenous astronomies. Some researchers argue that the information must have been transmitted to the Dogon by a European visitor in the late 19th or early 20th century, perhaps a French astronomer or colonial officer who shared popular accounts of Sirius B. Others point to the deeper layers of Dogon cosmology, myths of nomadic Nommo descending in an ark that spun like a basket and landed with fire and noise, and suggest the possibility of an ancient, perhaps prehistoric, contact with an advanced source of knowledge, human or otherwise. The Dogon themselves do not claim to have discovered these truths through observation alone. They say the Nommo taught them, and that the stars are merely the visible signs of greater cosmic realities. Whatever the ultimate explanation, the Dogon's relationship to the sky is not one of detached curiosity. For them, astronomy is theology, genealogy, agriculture, and medicine rolled into one. The movements of stars dictate the timing of rituals, the selection of hogans, and even the architecture of villages. The cliffs of Bandiagara are not just a refuge from invaders, they are an observatory designed by ancestors who understood that height brings one closer to the domain of the Nommo. In the chapters to come, we will descend deeper into the Dogon cosmos, the 8 primordial ancestors, the significance of twins, the symbolism of the number 60, the masked dances that reenact the ordering of the universe, and the enduring mystery of how a people living on the edge of the Sahara came to know secrets about a star 8.5 light-years away that baffled the Western world until the age of space telescopes. But everything begins here, on the sun-baked cliffs of Mali, where the Dogon have watched Sirius rise before dawn for countless generations, quietly guarding what may be one of humanity's oldest and most enigmatic links to the greater universe. Chapter 2: Sirius B, an impossible star. In the Dogon cosmos, the brightest star in the winter sky is never simply a point of light. They call it Tolo, the star of the Sigüe, and beside it, unseen by any human eye, circles Tolo, a star so small that the Dogon compare it to the tiniest grain of their fonio cereal, yet so heavy that all the iron on Earth could not outweigh it. Tolo, they say, is white, impossibly dense, and completes one orbit around the brilliant Tolo every 50 years along an egg-shaped path. These are not vague poetic metaphors, they are precise astronomical statements delivered matter-of-factly by elders who have never held a telescope. Western science only confirmed the existence of Sirius B in 1862, when Alvan Clark first glimpsed it through the 18.5-inch refractor at Dearborn Observatory, then the largest telescope in the world. Even after detection, it remained a faint speck of magnitude 8.4, requiring substantial optical power to resolve from the overwhelming glare of Sirius A, only 8.6 light-years away. Its true nature as a white dwarf, a stellar corpse the mass of the Sun squeezed into the volume of the Earth, was not grasped until the 1920s. Its density, roughly 3 tons per cubic centimeter, defied comprehension until quantum degeneracy pressure was understood. The 50-year elliptical orbit was accurately mapped only after decades of meticulous observation. Yet Dogon priests, recorded by French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen in the 1930s and 1940s, recited these facts with calm certainty, drawing diagrams in the sand that matched modern ephemerides. The puzzle is stark. The Dogon possess no historical record of telescopes, no lenses, no written astronomy texts. Their knowledge is oral, preserved by a priestly caste within secret societies. Naked eye observers, no matter how skilled, cannot see Sirius B. Its separation from Sirius A never exceeds 11 arcseconds, and the magnitude difference of over 10 makes it vanish in the glare. Even with the finest modern binoculars, it remains invisible. How, then, did this information enter their tradition centuries before Pupin and Bessel first inferred an unseen companion from the proper motion wobble of Sirius A in the 1840s? Skeptics point to possible contamination. Between 1890 and 1930, French astronomers, colonial administrators, and missionaries traversed West Africa. Could a passing European have mentioned the new dark companion of Sirius, perhaps showing a star chart, and Dogon priests then incorporated it into existing myths? Critics of this theory note that the Dogon already celebrated the Sigüe ceremony on a 60-year cycle, close enough to the true 50.2-year orbit to be striking, long before any documented European contact. Moreover, their additional details, the elliptical orbit, the extreme density, the third star MEYA, were not public knowledge in the 1920s, and certainly not illustrated in popular magazines. The Dogon themselves offer no apology for the anomaly. When pressed, they reply that the Nommo brought this knowledge when they descended in their spinning arc, and that Tolo is not merely a star but the transformed body of the sacrificed Nommo who gave order to the world. To them, the question is not how did we observe it, but why do you doubt what was taught by the beings who created us? Thus Sirius B stands as the sharpest edge of the Dogon enigma, a star that should have remained forever invisible, yet was named, weighed, and set in its proper orbit in the oral archives of a cliff-dwelling people long before the invention of the instruments that revealed it to the rest of humanity. Chapter 3: The Cosmic Blueprint, Other Celestial Insights. Sirius B is the loudest note in the Dogon astronomical symphony, but it is far from the only one. Once the ear adjusts to their language of stars, an entire orchestra emerges. The Dogon did not limit their sky reading to one binary system. Their priests mapped an entire cosmology that reaches from the planets at our doorstep to the great wheel of the Milky Way itself. They call Jupiter Dana Tolo, the star of the Dana, and state plainly that it is accompanied by 4 smaller companions that circle it like calves around a cow. The naked eye sees Jupiter as a brilliant wandering star, yet never resolves its moons. Galileo needed his 1609 telescope to glimpse the 4 largest, Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, and even then he mistook them for fixed stars until their motion betrayed them. The Dogon, however, described these satellites as large enough to be worlds in themselves, each with its own character and influence on earthly affairs. They assign them names and roles in the ordering of creation, linking them to the 4 cardinal directions and the 4 original clans. Saturn fares no better under the naked eye, a steady golden light. Yet the Dogon name it the star of circumcision, energy Tolo, and insist it is enclosed by a permanent, solid ring, or sometimes 2 rings, that turns with the planet. They draw this ring in the sand as an ellipse tilted to the line of sight, astonishingly close to the actual geometry of Saturn's rings, which Cas Christian Huygens only deciphered in 1655 after struggling with the poor optics of early telescopes. The Dogon further claim the ring is made of a substance harder than iron but lighter than water, a poetic echo of the ring's composition, almost pure water ice. Most breathtaking of all is their vision of the Milky Way. Where Western eyes once saw a river of milk or a backbone of night, the Dogon perceive a vast, flat spiral. They call it the path of the stars of the Nommo or Amma's necklace, and they draw it on the ground during initiation ceremonies as a coiled spiral with a bright center and 2 great arms winding outward. This is not a vague circle. Informants in the 1940s explicitly described it as a rotating wheel with arms that throw out stars and a dense nucleus where the Creator's seed is concentrated. Modern astronomy did not confirm the Milky Way's spiral nature until the 1920s, and the detailed 2-armed structure, later refined to 4, was only mapped with radio telescopes in the 1950s. These celestial bodies are never isolated curiosities in Dogon thought. Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, and the spiral galaxy are woven into a single narrative of descent and transformation. The 4 moons of Dana Tolo represent the 4 elements and the 4 original twin pairs born from Amma's egg. Saturn's ring is the boundary between the pure and the impure, the circumcision that separates the ordered world from chaos. The spiral Milky Way is the great granary of stars, where the grains, souls and seeds, are stored and redistributed by the Nommo as they travel between sky and earth. In the Dogon view, the universe is not a collection of objects but a living process. Every astronomical feature is a sign left by the Nommo during their civilizing mission. The sky is a 3-dimensional text, written in light and motion, that must be read simultaneously with the myths, the dances, and the layout of the village itself. To know the moons of Jupiter is to understand kinship, to trace Saturn's ring is to grasp the meaning of initiation, to follow the spiral arms is to walk the path of all ancestors returning to Amma. Thus the Dogon sky is not a catalogue of discoveries but a single, coherent revelation, an unbroken cosmic blueprint in which Sirius B is merely the brightest thread in a tapestry that stretches from the cliffs of Bandiagara to the edge of the observable universe. Chapter 4: The Whispers of the Ancients, Possible Origins. 4 centuries, perhaps millennia, Dogon children have sat in the flickering light of millet stalk fires while elders, voices low and deliberate, recited the same words their own teachers spoke decades earlier. In a society without writing, this is how the universe is preserved, not on clay tablets or parchment, but in human memory trained to an almost superhuman precision. The Sigue ceremony, celebrated only once every 60 years, is the most dramatic proof of this fidelity. When the last Sigue was held in 1967 to 1971, elders could still quote verbatim the speeches delivered at the previous cycle in 1907 to 1911, which in turn repeated those of 1847 to 1851. Each generation inherits not just stories, but diagrams drawn in the sand, songs with hundreds of verses, and astronomical timetables measured in human lifetimes. This oral mechanism is extraordinarily robust. Dogon priests undergo decades of initiation inside caves painted with cosmic symbols. They learn to recite the 480 signs of creation, the names and movements of dozens of stars, and the genealogies of clans stretching back, they claim, to the beginning of time. Mistakes are not tolerated, the knowledge is checked and cross-checked by multiple lineages. When Marcel Griol's team arrived in the 1930s, for separate priestly colleges, Awa, Bummo, Dioro, and Bennu, confirmed the same core astronomical data independently. This is not casual folklore. It is a disciplined science transmitted through mnemonic techniques that modern scholars have compared to the oral epics of ancient Greece or the Vedic texts of India, but with far greater technical specificity. Yet precision alone does not explain content. How did such specific, counterintuitive facts, the 50-year orbit of an invisible star, the rings of Saturn, the spiral arms of the galaxy, enter the tradition in the first place? The most commonly offered rational explanation is cultural contamination. Between 1893 and the 1930s, French astronomers, colonial officers, and missionaries were active in French Sudan, now Mali. The discovery of Sirius B in 1862 and its popularization in European magazines by the 1890s made it conceivable that a well-read visitor could have mentioned the dark companion to curious Dogon priests. Some researchers, notably Belgian anthropologist Walter van Beek and orthopsychiatrist Ortigue de Marais, spent years among the Dogon in the late 20th century and concluded that detailed Sirius B lore was known only to informants who had worked closely with Griol and Dieterlen, suggesting the knowledge was fed to the Dogon rather than extracted from them. Critics of the contamination hypothesis reply that the cycle of the Sigui predates any possible European contact by centuries. Rock paintings in the Bandiagara cliffs depicting the Sigui mask and its star have been carbon dated to at least the 15th century. Moreover, the Dogon possessed a rich pre-existing Sirius mythology, the star as the eye of the world, the place from which the first ancestors came, the marker of the most sacred ritual in their calendar. Adding a tiny, dense companion would not have been a casual embellishment, it would have required rewriting a cosmology that was already internally consistent. A second, more controversial line of explanation looks inward, to the genius of Dogon observation itself. Some African astronomers argue that naked eye techniques, combined with centuries of patient record-keeping on gourds or wooden boards, now lost, could have detected the gravitational influence of Sirius B on Sirius A's proper motion long before Bessel did so mathematically in 1844. Others suggest that exceptionally clear Sahelian skies and the use of water mirrors or rock crystal lenses, attested in some West African cultures, might have pushed the limits of resolution just far enough to glimpse something anomalous near Sirius at maximum separation. These theories remain speculative and struggle to account for the density and orbital period claims. Then there is the explanation the Dogon themselves give, and which they insist is the only one that matters. They speak of the Nommo, beings neither fully spirit nor fully flesh, half human, half serpentine, amphibious, with green skin and red eyes. The Nommo came from the sky in an arc that spun and roared, landing with thunder and fire on the dry plain northwest of Bandiagara. The leader, Nommo Anagono, was sacrificed by Amma to redeem a cosmic disorder, and from his dismembered body sprang the arts of civilization, agriculture, weaving, smithing, and the knowledge of the stars. His twin, the Nommo of the waters, taught the first 8 ancestors, 4 pairs of twins, before returning to the sky near Tolo, the star made from his own regenerated body. In the deepest level of initiation, reserved for the highest priests, the Nommo are explicitly linked to the system of Sirius. Their home world circles Tolo. Their arc followed the same elliptical path that the tiny star traces around its brilliant companion. The spiral descent of the arc is depicted in cave paintings and in the coiled brass figures worn by dancers, the same spiral the Dogon draw for the Milky Way. To the Dogon, the question "where did the knowledge come from?" has a simple answer. It was brought by the same beings who brought speech, fire, and seed. The Nommo are not metaphor or archetype. They are historical, in the Dogon sense of history that includes the time before this Earth. When modern astronomers finally confirmed Sirius B, the elders did not celebrate a vindication. They simply nodded and said, "Now you too can see the star of the Nommo." Whether one reads the Nommo as ancient astronauts, as archetypal memories of Nile Valley teachers who migrated westward after the desiccation of the Sahara, or as mythic embodiments of a lost indigenous science, the fact remains, the Dogon have preserved a body of astronomical information that should not, by all conventional standards, exist. The whispers of the ancients, passed breath to breath across countless dry season nights, continue to echo long after the telescopes that finally caught up with them have turned to rust. Chapter 5. Reconnecting with Universal Wisdom. The Dogon do not gloat. When Western astronomers finally photographed Sirius B, mapped Saturn's rings in exquisite detail, or revealed the barred spiral of the Milky Way, the elders of Bandiagara simply nodded, "Yes, that is Tolo. That is the necklace of Amma." Their quiet certainty should humble us. For 4 centuries the modern world congratulated itself on discoveries it believed were brand new, unaware that a small nation on the edge of the Sahara had carried the same truths in song and story since before Columbus sailed. Their message is not that science is wrong, but that science is late. Knowledge need not wait for telescopes or peer-reviewed papers. It can live in oral memory, in ritual, in the measured steps of a masked dancer tracing the orbit of an invisible star. The Dogon remind us that there are more ways of knowing than the one we have privileged since the Enlightenment. Modern astronomy now echoes them with uncanny precision. We speak of water worlds and exomoons around gas giants. Dogon spoke of the 4 moist satellites of Dana Tolo. We announce that most stars are born in binaries. The Dogon built their entire anthropology around sacred twins. We discover that the galaxy is a flat, spinning disk of 200 billion stars. They drew it that way on initiation grounds long ago. Even the search for life in the Sirius system, however improbable, keeps the Nommo myth uncomfortably close to the headlines. But the deepest Dogon teaching is not about facts, it is about relationship. To them, the universe is not a cold mechanism we happen to inhabit. It is a single living organism in which every star, every grain of phonio, every human soul is a deliberate creation of Amma and a descendant of the Nommo. We are not observers, we are participants, blood relatives of the very stars we study. In an age when many feel small beneath an expanding cosmos, the Dogon offer the opposite consolation. We are not small. We are connected by direct lineage to the dense heart of Tolo, to the spiral arms of the great granary of souls. The same intelligence that ordered the galaxies ordered the village, the family, the human heart. To look through a telescope is thrilling. To sit with a Dogon elder beneath the cliffs while he traces Tolo's ellipse in the dust with a stick older than the Renaissance is something else entirely. It is to remember that wisdom was never lost, it was only forgotten by those who thought they had outgrown it.